This film is a summary of Power the Fight's research into the effectiveness of therapeutic responses to violence in London, which involved 102 young people, 26 practitioners and 5 families.
In 2019, the number of knife offences in England and Wales was the highest on record, and the number of teenagers stabbed to death hit an 11-year high. When an incident of serious violence happens in my neighbourhood, me and my friends struggle to know where to go for support. The TIP report found the most common feeling in response to violence was anger. 70% of young people felt this way, and 29% said they would want or feel forced to do something back. But there are lots of things making it hard for us to speak to adults. We feel judged and uncomfortable speaking to people who don't understand our culture or day-to-day life. We're worried we might get in trouble. We don't know who we can trust. Lots of us have had bad experiences with authority in the past, like teachers, police, or the courts. Despite what the media might show you, youth violence is not just a black issue. However, black and brown families in the UK are twice as likely to be living in poverty than white families, and twice as likely to live in deprived areas where the risk of violence is higher. We are more likely to be affected by violence, but less likely to meet therapeutic professionals that look like us or share our cultural background. This creates further barriers to therapy and support. Even when we do want to talk, there are long waiting lists. Without help, the unresolved trauma and anger is likely to cause further violence in our communities.
As parents or carers who have lost their child to violence, we also struggle to receive the right therapeutic support. The need at such a time as this is critical, but our day-to-day routine and the added stress surrounding the loss of a child together make it very difficult for us to engage with any therapeutic services on offer. Whether it's funeral arrangements, criminal proceedings, trying to hold down my job, financial pressures, family arguments, many of the services on offer don't appreciate our context. Help that is offered is often only for a short time, and not when we need it the most.
As a professional working with young people and families in the aftermath of an incident of violence, I'm rarely supported or equipped to deal with the emotional fallout in the community. There is a lack of clinical supervision to process the impact on me as a practitioner and as an individual. My experience and knowledge of the people I work with are often ignored, and I'm left feeling frustrated, excluded, and exhausted. This leads to stress, burnout, and a cycle of trauma in our communities.
But what if there was another way to deliver therapeutic services in the context of serious youth violence? Cultural competency is the awareness, knowledge and ability to understand people and their needs through individual and group contexts such as race, class and gender.
The TIP report found that cultural competency training and increased diversity of professional representation was needed at all levels of service systems. Practitioners need access to clinical supervision to support them in their important work. Culturally competent organisations with trusted relationships in communities are best positioned to work in partnerships with schools, councils, mental health and youth offending services to connect people to the right support.
We need to provide long-term innovative approaches that value informal therapeutic relationships as well as clinical therapy. These include community groups and peer-to-peer support for whole families. We need to provide gender-specific projects that recognize the unique pressures and expectations of women and girls affected by trauma.
We need to address inequality, institutional racism and harmful power dynamics at all levels so no one is left behind or excluded. We should be able to access therapy that speaks into our cultural context when we need it, for as long as we need it. This will help us and our communities to become more resilient and to heal from the traumatic effects of violence. The full report provides evidence and detailed recommendations on how to achieve therapeutic interventions for peace. You can read the report online at powerthefight.org.uk.